Uh,
Should talk about like the human, because we talk about the lizards.
Adam and Eve, chapter 2.
Adam and Eve. Chapter. I mean, it starts from chapter one, isn't it?
Well, yeah, man sort of makes an appearance late in the day.
So later on the sixth day, so God created mankind in His own image, and the image of God He created them. Male and female He created them. Oh, that verse like is like it brings so much controversy,
Well, I
like
mean,
in a lot of different levels.
when you get into the whole sort of interrelation of a species of the sexes thing, but I mean, I read that as God created them, and therefore they're equal in God's sight.
Mm.
So therefore, who are we to argue?
Yeah.
Uh,
No, I mean it's a lot of like and it's a bad it's a mean argument uh, from anti-LGBTQ Christians that they kind of God create like you cannot be gay and Christian because God created or like no that was mostly against transgenderism or like or non-binary people that no it's like God created male and female. It's like yeah, okay. So how you explain this then? It's kind of like we know that now like sexuality doesn't change and trans people they're born like this. So we have to read that script, that passage, like in the light of what we know as a fact.
but,
Uh,
but we also, if you're dating it back to Genesis, first few chapters, you also get accounts of lions sitting down with lambs, and they don't do that too often these days either.
and also you have talking snakes
Yeah. So
and unicorns.
I, I think as a sweeping generalization, you can read into it what you like.
Yeah,
And I suppose, if you actually, if you wanted to pander to the sort of fundamentalist view, you could talk about the impact of the fall. God
yeah.
didn't create people who were ill either, so it was, But I'm
What?
not going down. I'm not going down that rabbit hole because that's a whole
Yeah,
different topic. I mean,
it's a very
it's,
poor argument because you get countered. But the thing is, when it comes to fundamentalists, for me personally, I don't argue.
no, I mean
You just
it's.
walk away. I mean, if it's on Facebook, I might go a little bit of trolling, depending how I feel. If I feel a bit mischievous on that day, but you cannot have like a serious conversation with them because there's,
I've never thought it
uh,
worth it. Never worth the effort.
yeah, it's not gonna go anywhere. So both of you gonna get angry,
Yep.
and no one will win. So you
Yeah.
both
It's
lose,
it's
and
it's, it's back to the Dawkins versus theologist thing, isn't it?
mm.
It's who can
and
shout
I
the
get it.
loudest.
I get fundamentalists because I mean, from one side, I maybe get trolling them sometimes, but like I used to believe those things, so kind of I know where they are, and I know that
Yeah.
I know I wasn't listening.
I mean,
Uh, and I know that
no, but
because
nothing to do with religion. I was brought up in the 70s.
mm,
I mean, it's and those views were there whether you had a faith or no faith. You didn't actually need Christianity to be a bigot.
yeah, yes, but
Yeah, it was just how we were,
yeah,
and I've learnt a bit over the years. So
yeah, but I'm a kid of like I was born in the '80s, but I grew up in the '90s, so it's kind of like only Christians were bigots.
yeah, I think you'll find it's not only Christians even now, but uh, yeah,
Not
not,
really. I
not
mean, there are plenty of non-religious people that they hold like on those views.
yeah, and
So,
it's
but it's like Christianity that
institutional.
from the Christianity side is like because it happened from an institution basically, so it kind of shows more. It's not like an individual that runs on Facebook about trans people, men dressing wearing women's clothes. It's like there's actually an institution with with
Yeah.
thousands of people like under them.
And also it's the danger of making sweeping generalizations. You
Yeah,
know, some people, it seems to be naturally genetically coded in. Some people, it's a choice of lifestyle, and other people, it's actually everything in between. You know, circumstance, a reaction to abuse in
mm.
other relationships, and all sorts of things.
But
So you know, you can't just have one explanation for everything.
for me, the
It's
bottom line is none of your business.
yeah, and
There's a choice or they're born like this. It's none of your business.
God loves everybody.
Yeah, and that and like how that affects your life.
Yeah,
Mm, with nothing at all. So like you know, carry on living and love everyone. Like so,
yeah,
anyway, so that's another like area that creates a lot of like alienation, is it, with like non-believers, like especially the more educated, well-educated ones. That if you believe in a literal that humans came into existence by actually a man and a woman, you ended up with an awful lot of issues. Stand for me. I mean, first of all, the maths don't make sense. The history, the second, like the narrative itself is all over the place.
yeah.
If you believe that Adam and Eve was the first human, the narrative itself is like it's like being written by a guy eating like a ton of shrooms and now he's hallucinating and whatever comes in the head. But also you have a more serious problem of incest,
Mm.
inbreeding, which is and I was watching a video the other day about inbreeding. It was mostly touching like during the Middle Ages, all of that aristocracy and the kings that they would kind of keep inbreeding, and it was actually like in the end they would just run out of people because of the breeding, all those like genetic disorders and conditions, like
Mm.
they will become so severe that they're just dying. Uh, and which it was also like human, we have a, a repulsion on incest wired in us.
Mm.
So naturally we find it wrong, like it's like wired in our DNA that you shouldn't have kids with your sister.
Yeah.
And actually science proves that because you're gonna be really messed up. Like, it's not like it's not exactly I'm not touching on the I'm not even go like on the ethics of it. It's like biologically it's messed up,
It
like
messed up.
scientifically
Yeah.
it's messed up. uh, so but it's a kind of but then I remember I heard that a few years ago that I know like because God wanted humans to to multiply, He allowed incest. Like for it's like
And then he changed the rules.
yeah, but like first of all, when He actually allowed it, so where is that recorded? And second, when is recorded that He now changed the rules? It's kind of like
And since God is the Alpha and the Omega and unchanging, how does
it's
that
kind
work?
of like
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of
But that's the fitting the evidence to meet the story, isn't it? It's
yeah.
um,
So
but
the
I think
question of
even if you look at the start of Genesis 2, there's contradictions with Genesis 1. Um, yeah, or,
to make clear, it's a contradiction if you read in it the traditional way, isn't it?
sorry, if you're reading it literally, yeah. I mean, it says in verse 4, or sorry, verse 5, no shrub had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant had sprung up because God hadn't sent rain. And then God formed man. Well, that's not what it said in the first book, because in day 3 we had plants, and day 5 we had fish, and day 6 we had man.
Yeah.
So again, it's down to the sort of sitting around the fireside. This is a different story, so it's starting with a different narrative.
The, personally, I don't see it this way. And it was coming like there were like a couple of very good books. The one is called The Lost World of Adam and Eve, and the other one is like The Lost World of Genesis 1, both from the same author. I don't remember his name. I was looking at the books the other day, but like they're very good books. You should check if anyone like. And basically, his explanation makes perfect sense for me because it says like basically Genesis 2 is not a retelling of Genesis 1 when it comes
Mm.
to human. It's actually a later thing. It's actually a sequel. So I say in Genesis 1, it kind of narrates the creation of humans. I don't know, like how you can take that in like evolutionary terms. Like I don't know, he created Homo sapiens, or he created like Neanderthals, or like prime. How they call them?
Primates.
Primates. I don't know. Take it however you want it, but
Yeah.
and then on Genesis 2, it kind of takes on that. It creates that new humanity, so it picks up Adam and Eve, which it wasn't the weren't their names. It was because
Mm.
Adam means. There's a bit of a like it can of a it can mean either man like human or made from dust,
Okay.
uh, and Eve obviously mean life. So it's like they were symbolic names. So if they were
Mm.
actual people, the names were different. So in a way, I don't know how. You can, I don't know. It can say for me, it can say you got created Homo sapiens or
I mean,
gave conscious to monkeys, uh,
I mean,
or
I
it was
think
just a new humanity that wanted to be have a I don't know be a model of. It's only we can only speculate, isn't it?
yeah, it's again, it's like it's one of these questions that we can never actually know the answer. I mean, it's fun to come up with ideas, or maybe for our self satisfaction, we might come up with ideas, but whether they're right or wrong, no one's going to ever know, and some people might disagree, and perfectly justified to do so.
Yeah,
I mean, I tend to think of it. I think looking at certainly the next few chapters. I mean, Adam and Eve have children, Cain and Abel, and they go off and find wives, which to me
yeah.
says there are other humans.
Abel didn't find wives. Abel was
Well,
dead.
Abel was dead. Cain went off and found wives. Um, but it
But
means
he
there are
found those
other
wives.
people are around, that it doesn't say we're descended from Adam. I mean, I guess if you're
No, that's another
relying
thing that
on,
does make sense, isn't it? If you read it
yeah,
this way, the traditional way, it's like
yeah,
where Cain found all those women and create communities.
yeah. So, and then there's a whole thing about sort of the sort of other races beyond Eden and such like. And I tend to be sort of to rationalize that in my own head, thinking, well, sort of when it says God created man in his image, I don't think of God as human shaped, long white beard or not. I think of God as a personality
Yeah,
creator. And if so, his image is having personality. So maybe making God making man in his image was the moment that basically highly evolved primates suddenly developed consciousness
mm.
as we would know it today. Um, memory higher, neural skills, whatever.
Because that's something like
The ability to love.
if you take like the non-theistic evolutionary approach, it's kind of how we came to be as species. It
Yeah.
doesn't add up because you can say okay, like you can say except like the common ancestor, and by the way, evolution theory never said that we came out of monkeys.
No.
So
No, monkeys are a parallel
if
development,
if you're
much as
yeah,
Neanderthals are a
if you're a
parallel.
Christian and try to argue with evolutionists that we don't came out of monkeys, they will agree with you.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
comes on the common ancestor, isn't it? Uh, but when it comes like to humans as ourselves, it's kind of for me it has to be something else there because you can't. Because first of all, why it's only us? Where you have a lot of primates, for instance, you have chimpanzees, you have apes, monkeys, but none of them became like developed.
Sentient is the word, I
Okay,
guess.
I don't know.
Thinking.
Art, music, architecture.
So
You know,
maybe because God is spiritual, it was when human beings were
no,
given a
that's it. But
soul.
when you take a
But
non-theistic approach to
yeah,
evolution, for me, it kind of this is the at one point like it kind of how you get us
yeah, and
as creating species like why
yeah,
one of the things like why there's no other species like you know where you see like other similar primates they're kind of very similar, so it's kind of what made Homo sapiens was
mm.
different or
And
Neanderthals.
I'm not aware that science has got an answer to that.
Yeah, no, there's not. I don't think there
Yeah,
is. It's like a.
uh,
I mean,
uh,
for the time, their answer for the time being is kind of like through mutations and evolution. Right.
yeah, but other stuff evolves and
Yeah.
few mutations too.
Mm. So
Um,
this is where
it's,
like
it's
it kind
possibly
of.
an argument that we ate them. Anyone who looked promising, we just ate anyway, like sort of
Yeah.
dodos and
Another theory with Neanderthals is that because they extinct because of inbreeding because there weren't that many.
yeah.
They keep inbreeding and it just like died out because like they
I mean,
so they were so genetically messed up that they kind of died out. Just killed. That's actually
yeah,
Homo sapiens just killed them.
yeah, it's competition,
Yeah.
which I'd probably favour. But again, genetics is now showing evidence that there's a lot that there was interbreeding between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. Um,
Also, I found very interesting that I was in. It's kind of. Uh, it's like scientifically, all humans we related.
yes.
So, and it's something I'm not taking. Of course, I'm not taking back to Adam and Eve. So a younger creator would say yes, but it's not
So
for me. And to be honest, this is for me. It's very shallow explanation. For me, it kind of shows like the whole thing how God created everything is like you actually mentally, spiritually, and physically interconnected with every other human being in this earth.
yeah.
So maybe like long cousins, but like deep down in your DNA, you kind of like somehow related.
So I think sort of geneticists have studies showing that actually there is a point of origin that sort of common genes that can be traced back potentially to two individuals, um, which would be your Adam and Eve. I think the timescale is different from 6,000 years. I'm not sure
Mm.
what it is, but uh,
But you have the
it
problem
is.
with breeding, that it cannot be this way because you have the problem with breeding.
I guess the further you go back, the purer the stock, the less hassle you get.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess sooner or later we breed ourselves into oblivion because of genetic mutation. Assuming we don't blow ourselves up first. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that's why Jesus is coming back. Save us a bother.
Yeah, that don't go there. That's another big like anytime now.
And knowing our luck, it'll be 2 weeks before our building's reopened. All the hassle it's been.
Yeah. So no one got that joke though.
No, well, that's
Yeah.
fine. In jokes. But yeah, I think, the point is you can look at whether it's Genesis 1 or subsequent chapters, and if you're really bothered, you can find reasonable explanations that make them sit comfortably, that don't have to rely on a literal 6-day creation, a literal one man and one woman. You can find stuff that rationalizes with your knowledge of science. And I'd be far from claiming that my knowledge of science is complete. I take a passing interest in this stuff.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
there's a
when
whole lot of science out there that I don't understand. So
you
that's
go
fine.
into very sciencey, there's so much like a lot of the literature is been written to be read by another 6 people, basically. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
so it's so scientifically and so like jargon that no one that actually doesn't is not like into like professionally into that thing. It
But
won't understand it.
if everyone could understand it, it wouldn't be clever.
Yeah.
It's and you wouldn't get paid so much for it.
I think sometimes the scientists themselves they try to make it because they kind of like a, you know, it has to be. And I remember I was listening to an interview by Bart Ehrman, and he was kind of thrown down when he started writing books about the masses.
Mhm.
You're not a scientist anymore. Like you writing books about the masses. Like, I don't know, what's the point of writing books if like no one will read them, or like you and other 5 people like they will only read them, and then they will write another paper to counter your view that the same 5 people will read it. And
Well, I mean, that's. I suppose if science is going to progress, you've got to have the people working at that sort of level where very few
yeah,
people understand the answer.
but then you have
But
to make it like
for
accessible,
science,
isn't it?
yeah, for science to exist as a whole, you have to bring the people along. So you have your coffee table books and whatever,
Yeah.
and your Stephen Hawkins and
Yeah, because like when it comes to like to biblical scholarship as well, like a lot of the things that we say is like literally the whole biblical scholarship community, how do you call them? They're unanimous on those things.
yeah,
And like suddenly you go down to a local church and it's like, oh, that's heresy. But like people actually like they doing that for a living,
yeah.
and they're Christians. They're not like debunking Christianity. They actually like they're Christians themselves. They go to church every Sunday, like, and they say no, that those things like Paul didn't write Timothy, like,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Like,
As, as people devote their entire life to just looking at sort of a few chapters of the Bible to.
so because of time, I'd just like to go like to a few last comments, kind of, because it's always like very when I first read about those stuff, I found like really deep and really interesting on the creation of like Adam,
Hmm.
and he was saying like God took mud and formed Adam out of dirt, and then God blew into the clay and became like a living being. Obviously, like don't believe that's literal, but like within the Hebrew tradition, is kind of man created out of mud. He shows like our mortality.
Yeah.
So it's like a symbol of mortality that you're not uh, immortal. And but for me, like the couple of other points that I found really strong is one is like when it comes to humans, God actually get his hands dirty.
Yeah.
And then actually, so in the Hebrew and in Greek, the words for spirit and breath are exactly the same
Yeah.
word.
Rachos.
So, and then God put something of himself into humans. So for me, theologically, it says, and that's my interpretation, that the Holy Spirit is always within humans
Hmm.
from birth, from day one.
Yeah.
And what we call like the born again experience, or like the baptized in the Holy Spirit, or born again, however you want to call it. For me, it's mostly that part of God. It kind of gets activated and start
Hmm.
working, and also looking at it from a more like psychology perspective. Uh, in general, like more, I think it's all major uh, branches of psychology accept that human personality has parts. So we're not like one unique personality. We have parts of us. So it's a long thing to explain. For me, it fits perfectly on that narrative. So one of our part of our personality is kind of God's personality, God's own part that He put that on the first day He created humans, however you want to call them, Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, apes. Uh, Maybe that's the day that He made apes into human. He just give them a good shave.
Yeah. What a day that was.
And the other thing is, when we look at the creation of Eve, and it's kind of the popular thing is like a rib,
Yeah.
uh, and obviously like scholarship, and I believe the same thing. It's like they don't. There's not like actually. It wasn't like a literal creation of women. It was mostly Adam was watching a vision,
Okay.
and the more accurate reading is actually got to like the side of Adam. So basically, he cut Adam in half and created women and created Eve.
Or mankind in half and created male and female.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like
Oh,
on the text. So I mean,
yeah.
for me, it kind of was saying, I don't know. One of the things he was kind of, I don't know. There might be like patriarchy was getting out of hand and putting Adam into ecstasy. Like, look, you're stupid. Like, you can't live without her. Like, you're literally your other half. Like,
I did remember back. Oh, it must have been 70s or 80s. There was a feminist newspaper called Spare Rib, which I just felt, it was humorous, for,
yeah,
I mean, back then feminists didn't have a great sense of humor. Or ones I met didn't anyway. But I thought that showed, good sense of irony,
yeah,
irrelevant to anything. But
yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
and I think it's interesting. Again, we're looking at God creating in whatever way He did it, but He created mankind, male and female, in Genesis 1, and He created Eve as Adam's helper. It doesn't in any way, either sent or either text say anything about one being subservient to the other.
mm.
Um,
Just
which
help. I mean, I don't remember. It's been quite a while since I read those books, but I think I remember reading that help is quite also a bad translation.
I quite
Uh,
probably. I mean, it's ambiguous, I guess, isn't it?
yeah.
Because you can have helpers who are subservient, but I think it's sort of codependent would be a better reading of
Yeah,
it.
codependent is unhealthy. I think interdependent.
Or interdependent. Yes,
Interdependent.
that's the word.
Codependence is like it's like the one-on-one toxic relationship.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah,
You're the psychologist. Yeah,
yeah. No, I'm
that's
not a
fine.
psychologist. I'm a
Well,
psychotherapist.
psychotherapist.
An electrician. So
Yeah,
anything about
interdependent.
interdependence.
Equally valid but different.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah, it's a last question like to you mostly. I don't, and that's like I don't know if you have any information. You know the whole like argument against uh, the ever existence of God, but it's kind of like you know when we kind of when we get counter arguments against the existence of God, like how who created God, for example. It's like God was always he was always existing, and it's like but I don't know, for me, and obviously I'm not like a biologist or a geologist, but aren't we both theist and non-theist facing the same paradox? So we have the paradox, for me, like as believers, we have the paradox of a never-existing God.
mhm.
But as a non-theist, you have the paradox of a never-existing universe. Because
I think so. Yeah.
I think for me, like taking it back, and back, you go all the way back. Some point, like, okay, so something has to existed from since always. So it has to be either a never existing person or never existing universe. I don't know.
The I think the arguments are probably the same. I mean,
No,
my
I look
very
at it as a
minimal
paradox mostly. Like,
yeah my very minimal understanding of the Big Bang is that everything started at a single point and is still expanding from that point.
but then,
Which begs the question: where did that point come from?
yes, and that
Um,
begs the question, like how the Big Bang came to be.
yeah,
I mean,
um,
there is a theory how the Big Bang came to be, like with all like the electrons and there is there are theories how the Big Bang came to be, but like what was before the Big Bang? So how those
yeah.
like particles explode? So
Uh,
where they were coming from? It's like,
what is the universe expanding into? Is the one that always blows my
yeah,
mind. There
the
must
Event
be.
Horizon, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if a
Fantastic
universe,
film, by the way.
I absolutely love
Have
it.
you watched it?
Yes, at least twice.
Yeah,
Um,
it's on Netflix, I think. I may watch
um,
it tonight again now that we
yeah, now you've mentioned that. Oh,
Since
oh,
I interview Peter Laws, and so his interview will be coming up after this one, after our conversation gets live, the first part of it. Then we're gonna have Peter, and after we interview Peter, I was going like 2 days watching horror films, like because I got so immersed again back into horror. It's just like I need to watch horror, like a lot of it, like give me horror. And I was playing Resident Evil. It's like because it's kind of like the geeky side of me, kind of like it was flooded. I was flooded of
got
horror
to go and kill
geekiness, and
some
like
zombies. Yeah,
yes, and like yeah. So
I,
I ended up watching Event Horizon tonight, and
yeah. I mean, it's one of the better sort of sci-fi. I suppose it's horror crossover, is it? I don't know.
it's a
It's a
space horror basically.
it's yeah, but it's mostly not that horrific. It's more a sort of space mystery, isn't it? For
Yeah,
most of it. But anyway, excellent film.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I think maybe again, and it's I'm I've got no way of knowing what was there before the start of the universe or
But
whether.
sometimes I think is the human arrogance, and that I'm saying that from all sides. Either
Yeah,
you come from a theistic or a non-theistic
yeah. I think
point. Is
it
that
all.
arrogance that I know, or I must prove that, or disprove the other
Yeah.
person. Like
Or I need to know.
Yeah, and
I can't carry on with more important stuff until I know the answer to this absolutely
and I
unknowable
remember
question.
actually Bart Ehrman said that. So whoever doesn't know Bart Ehrman's a New Testament scholar, which also he's an atheist. But
Okay.
his wife is Christian, so he's married with a London girl, which is a Christian, is a practicing Christian. And one of the things because he got asked like, how you know, does he listen to your podcast or what, do you discuss your ideas and how you, and like with Bart Ehrman was the problem of pain, the problem of evil that
Hmm.
led him out of faith. And his wife says like, you need to leave some things into mystery and
Yeah.
don't try to prove like debunk mystery or like explain mystery. Some like you need to learn to live with that mystery, like,
Mm.
and that mystery could be the event horizon. It could be the Big Bang, what was before them. It's just a mystery. Just let it go. Like you will
Yeah.
never
No,
know.
that's
We
fair.
will never know.
What?
Probably we'll never know. It's fine to try
What?
to find, but like I think it's both theist and non-theist. We need to just be comfortable not knowing and just feel comfortable within that mystery.
Yeah. Without the mystery, uh, the whole concept actually is built on mystery, isn't it? We
Mm.
can't understand how grace works, how any of this stuff works.
I mean, to be honest,
Um,
I can personally, I can understand how grace works because we always have like the paradigm, the example of family structure, isn't it?
but it's so much more.
Yeah, yeah,
It's the extremes of grace.
yeah,
I think I can rationalize it. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. But it's the resurrection of the dead. All of this, I believe it. I don't understand it, but
Yeah.
and that's fine. I think with both the sort of your God question and the Big Bang, probably time has something to do with it,
Time and
and
what? It's like,
sort of the because clearly before the Big Bang, maybe perhaps before the Big Bang, time hadn't started. Maybe before the creation, God was, but time hadn't started. We can only think in terms of time, and then you get into a
but
whole
it is
debate
a
about what
paradox,
time
isn't
is.
it? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
and never. I mean, sometimes I think of it's like I think my brain is gonna like start getting, you know, the cogs in my brain start
yeah,
getting. I hear them like struggle to turn. And start thinking like the ever existence of God is kind of like, or the divine or whatever. Like it's like I don't know. Sometimes I spend too
tr-
much time in the van on my own. Like I'm a Christian, so I'm thinking a lot of times, and I'm thinking like a lot of weird stuff coming through my mind. Like when it comes like to God and theology, it's kind of like, uh, and it's kind of I don't know. So yeah, a lot of
yeah.
like
Some things need to be left as mysteries.
yeah. And at the end, you kind of like you arrived on your next appointment. It's like I realized I will never know, and
Yeah,
like okay, that's fine.
but that's what I was saying about the whole sort of Genesis thing. I've come up with some ideas that rationalise it to my satisfaction. They may be wrong,
Mm.
they may be right. It doesn't matter. Move on.
I think the whole to
I'll never
summarize.
know.
Yeah, I mean to summarize our point. I think the point we're trying to make. I think you may agree that the we need to trust science and geology and biology and how they need to inform not I don't know if it's like faith, inform our faith or our understanding about the Bible and God.
I
And
think
for me, it kind of makes it even the awe and the wonder towards that it becomes bigger. So the more science and geology gives me about about the world, it kind of makes my awe about God even bigger.
Hmm.
So it doesn't minimize God. It actually makes it even like the mystery makes it even bigger. It's like what you're
Well,
thinking, like
absolutely agree with that. Yeah, I mean, thinking back to
you created
you know,
those like angels,
when
those like really scary creatures,
yeah,
like covered in feathers and eyes, and like that's like literally like from the Alien film something comes, and then like
um, I don't think they've invented enough CGI to represent some of those things. Um, yeah, when sort of the Genesis stories were first told or even first written down, people didn't have a lot of scientific knowledge and had a very simplistic view of the world. And in however many thousand years that is,
mm,
science has shown us an awful lot of stuff and increasingly more complicated stuff. And yeah, I'd absolutely agree. It's just it's very easy to maybe as as an ancestor to think of God getting some clay and making Adam. It's far more impressive to think of God producing a human being with all the complexity of the biology, the interaction of organs and physics and chemistry, and the ability to digest and the ability to breathe and the ability to process stuff, the ability to self heal, all of that. Yeah, that's the sort of stuff you need a god for, you know. Um, and yeah, dinosaurs, whatever. None of that interferes with the concept of a omnipotent creator god. It's all just sort of when people get sucked into the arguments about this stuff, what's the point? It's um, you can never be right, you can never be wrong because you'll never know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's something I have heard. I don't know how widely spread is that theory. Just a few friends of mine they kind of uh, subscribe to this idea. By the way, like most of, I mean, to be honest, all of my childhood friends are atheists. So I don't know how I came out as a Christian. Like literally all my childhood friends are, and we're still very
Yeah,
good friends. And like all of them are atheists. Like
I think
literally
mine
all of
too,
them.
actually. Yeah, yeah,
And so like they were saying like the whole story of Adam and Eve came around because like people they weren't very bright and they would like use a symbolic story, and which I found like absolute nonsense because like so you like people were daft and like you create like
it's
I
a
mean
bit patronizing, isn't that?
yeah it's a bit like and no, it's a bit arrogant as well isn't it like
Yeah,
and even like people like in like 1,000 years from now you call us idiots because like oh you need it like oh
no, look at
you
them, they
needed
didn't have
Netflix
holograms.
because you needed Netflix because you're idiots and you couldn't get like how like sex education works, so you wanted a
Yeah.
series on Netflix. Like, it's
Yeah,
kind of it is a symbolic for me. It is a symbolic story because the information people had it was limited.
yeah.
They weren't idiots. They were just
I,
they didn't have enough. They had very limited information of
they had limited
how
information, but they still managed to create a
they still,
worldview.
yeah. But then, going back to the beginning, it's like they have so limited information, but they still knew that the earth was covered with water
Yeah,
at the initial stage of creation. Like for me, it's like in every like from biblical, geological, every aspect. It's like how they knew
yeah.
because there was no one there to tell them, unless like God got like a bunch of people and told them.
And maybe you did.
Yeah, I'll ask him when I see him.
Yeah. First thing you'll ask when you get to heaven.
It's always like this kind of, those. It's like let's say this and then start wrapping things. You know when people saying, "Oh, you know what you would say if would Jesus walked now into like here and like, or you see that what you say?" People go like in this like ultra spiritual things and kinda, and me they're like, "Can I ride this T-Rex?" You know what I mean? Like,
How did I do?
I don't know. I mean,
Um,
I don't think like Jesus would ever care. Like, how did you do it? Just like
well, no, I know, but
you're good enough
I
to
didn't
like,
say he cared.
yeah. No, I mean like
Uh,
this. There's always like I don't know. Weird thoughts that come. Like I'll probably I want to ride that dinosaur, and then we can talk about later. Like, can I ride this dinosaur like now while listening to Cannibal Corpse?
that's 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 possibly the most metal thing you could do, isn't it?
Yeah,
Listening to the Cannibal Corpse while riding a dinosaur. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
in a mosh pit.
Mosh pit with dinosaurs.
Yeah,
People riding dinosaur and moshing, and Jesus in the middle. That would be a
that sounds like an image
that'd
to
be.
end on. Ah, dear.
Yeah, that was it. Your local metal church. We do church riding dinosaurs. Maybe we can do like a banner out of it.
Well,
Uh,
they talk about rock and roll being the dinosaur of music, and
Out?
hence my T Rex with his
Yeah,
guitar. Yeah,
yeah. You came prepared.
absolutely. I was
I
dressed
came
for the
with my
occasion.
SLA dining t-shirt, and some people say, "Ah, they're not a Christian band anymore," you know. I don't care.
Wow.
Neither Cannibal Corpse, but like. Anyway, with that thought, so that ended up being a double episode. So yeah, I hope you enjoy our rambling, and keep in touch. So yeah, so we saw probably you listened Peter the week before, but anyway, like I
It's,
kind of
who
losing track
knows?
how episodes are going because then you
And if you're
you
catching up, you might not listen in the right order. So, hey,
yeah, so you listen to something in
yeah.
2 weeks time from here.
But I think that the moral of this episode, or the last two episodes, if we split it, is actually when it comes to this stuff, there are no answers. So it's pretty safe to believe what you like. Don't shout
You
down other people's opinions just for the sake of it, because you're probably
you
not right, you know,
you
and they're
you
probably not
play.
right either. So if someone's got a different view to yours, let them have it. It's fine. It's just
I think
live and let live.
the other thing is like there are a lot of theories that they kind of make more sense. So don't stuck on the traditional fundamentalistic
Yeah.
explanation, like interpretation of
Oh
the
yeah.
Bible. There are Christians actually that they devoted their lives on exploring those ideas, and they're still believers.
Yeah. And when God created us, He gave us an intellect, and it would be a great shame if you didn't use it.
Yeah. With that note, bye.
Go well. God bless.